Hello everyone, College Course back again with another video. This time we're looking at the history of India, how a subcontinent was transformed forever. Now, the modern day state of India, that we know of at least, sought its independence from the British East India Company and tried to overthrow the Raj that ruled the subcontinent before its independence. Now, in the 1900s, India had revolutionary movements. Mostly, they started there, in red. That is part of the state of Bengal. Now, these movements were mostly peaceful because they'd adopted the policies of Gandhi, and he became a major symbol of Indian independence in the years to come. And what eventually happened is the Indian National Congress adopted his policies. Now, the Indian National Congress was the autonomous parliament that the British set up in India in order to better control the population. Now, the movement slowly started after Gandhi had gained popularity, and it kind of progressed slowly but surely, and they started to become more and more violent as these people were beaten with sticks and shot at. Oh, these poor people. It was so bad for them. But India finally gained its separation from the British Empire August 15th, 1947. Awesome. Good for you, India. Hooray. But it came at slight cost. Now, 15 million people had to be moved around. Why? Because India was partitioned into 3 spots. And it was mostly partitioned based on religious reasons. So in the west you had Pakistan, in the east you had modern day Bangladesh. So you had West Pakistan, East Pakistan, and India. India being primarily Hindu, and the Pakistans being primarily Islamic or Muslim. Now, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, raised the national flag above the Lahore Gate of the Red Fort in Delhi for the first time on the 15th of August 1947. Go you India, you rock. Now, in order to understand the modern day state of India, we have to journey back in time to the colonial period. Now, many of you will learn in school that the Mughal Empire was what the British saw when they first came to India, and sort of that's kind of true, but not really. The Mughal Empire was established in 1526 by Babur, who is a descendant of Genghis Khan that ruled the Timurids, which were in modern day Persia into Afghanistan. And he carved himself out a Genghis Khan-worthy empire in northern India. They eventually became known as the Mughal Empire. Now, what would happen is that this empire would control 4 states: Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. And so he had most of the northern subcontinent. Unfortunately, that empire was never meant to last, because the Marathan Empire, or Marathan Kingdom, rose to power in the mid-1600s. And what happened is that the Mughal Empire was ruling the subcontinent with Islamic ways, and they were trying to convert the populace. And that was great where they were. So that was modern-day Pakistan, northern India, where Islam was okay, it was fine, it was well accepted. But in the south, they were primarily Hindu, so it didn't work out for them very well. Oh well. But the Marathan empires slowly took care of the Mughal Empire as more states converted to their cause. So we had several states that formed after the collapse of the Mughal Empire. Gujarat in the west, Punjab in the north, the Marathas in the south, and Bengal in the east. Now, Goa was the first British possession in India back in the 1600s. Goa was actually a territory of Portugal's. Hooray, Portugal. Portugal held Goa for over 450 years, up until 1961, and Portugal had colonies in India way before the British had colonies in the Americas. So at the time, Goa was great for the Portuguese, major center of trade, deep water ports, amazing spices, beautiful for them, and seeing the success of Portugal, other European countries decided that, you know what, it's their turn, they should try it. So you had France. France came next, and France started in pondicherry in the 1700s, and completely and totally failed. By 1715, there were so many rebellions that they just decided to abandon it completely. The French absolutely sucked at colonizing India. But the Dutch, being a merchant republic, were there for a much different reason. The riches of India made the Dutch merchants of the Dutch East India Company boatloads of money. And they used the major population in order to produce massive trade ships and trade goods. They also used southern India as a sort of step-off point to hit modern-day Indonesia. And they controlled modern-day Indonesia up until the late 1960s, where Indonesia finally gained its independence. Now, we would have the British. But they only arrived in the 1830s. Why did that happen? Well, I'll tell you what happened. That happened. The coronation of Queen Victoria in London in 1832. Or 1838. Probably 1838. She would come to rule the largest empire the world had ever known. At its height, the British Empire governed a quarter of the world's people, so over 1 billion people, and covered a third of the world's land. The sun never set on the British Empire. That's the way the phrase goes. They controlled territory from New Zealand to Canada. It was absolutely insane. The British would play a key role in the world's conflicts from the 1830s all the way through till the present day, and they still do. So, hooray for England. So they announced their arrival in India with the annexation of the entire Maratha kingdom. They just annexed the entire thing outright. And they established the British East India Company to control the populace and regulate trade in the region. Now, there were a couple more territories, of course, Bengal, Punjab, Delhi, all that nice stuff. And then Queen Victoria was crowned the Empress of India, a title which nobody else in the history of the world has ever been able to hold. And that was January 1st, 1877. They controlled all of India. Just all of it. It was amazing. They did what no other European power could do successfully. It was incredible. This was the first time that India had been subjugated and brought together under one rule. And the British weren't even Hindu. But it was good, though. Queen Victoria had religious tolerance in the region, which is what allowed the populace to remain content. And the British Empire took control of over 100 million people. That included all of these countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Burma, Myanmar for you British people, and Sri Lanka. Yes, they even took that from the Dutch. Woo. And they would rule over India until 1947, where independence was recognized. Now, independence wasn't fully granted in 1947. They had a local parliament in 1947, and then independence was granted in the 50s, but they were pretty much independent back in 1947. Now, the modern-day state of India has got approximately 1.35 billion people crammed together at huge densities. I don't even understand what's happening in Mumbai. It's just amazing. But they do face challenges, mainly between Pakistan and China. They have border disputes with these people, which is not always the best thing. And the current border dispute is with the Kingdom of Kashmir and Jammu. Now, the way it worked with Indian unification is that each section of India was broken up into kingdoms, and when the country was established back in the 40s, they had essentially two choices: remain independent as a kingdom or join the country of India. So the Kingdom of Kashmir and Jammu in the north of India decided to remain independent, and it was governed by the Raj, who was very Hindu. And being Hindu, he thought, India would be a good ally for me to have, because India had a lot of military power in the region. Until Pakistan invades in the 1950s. So, yeah. What ended up happening is you had the Raj that called upon India, for assistance, because he's like, we're Hindu, you're Hindu, we should work together, right? Yeah, no, that didn't happen. And in order for the Raj to get his majority Islamic population defended by India, he'd have to join India. So that's what happened. The Kingdom of Kashmir and Jammu joined India in the 1960s, and Pakistan invaded, took a whole bunch of land, and the entire region remains in dispute to this day. It's claimed in its entirety by India, and only India. Pakistan only lays claim to the areas that it currently controls, as well as Kashmir, and China only lays claim to the areas that it currently controls. Tibet has some claims, but they're not really fighting a war or anything. And the UN has sent in peacekeeping troops, and they kind of have the de facto border between three regions under pretty much all control. The other thing that happened is both countries got nuclear weapons, so India probably got them from the United States or the United Kingdom, and Pakistan got them more than likely from the Soviet Union. So the nuclear deterrents really help out, no war in the region. Now, Mumbai, India's most crowded city. Over 30 million people live in Mumbai. That is absurd. India, for those of you that don't know, is the second most populous country next to China. The difference between India and China is that the growth rate of the population is still exponential in India, whereas in China they have the one-child policy, so each family only has one kid. Those who have more than one face huge fines, and they lose out on a lot of benefits. So in India, though, there is no limit. So people just pack in, and it just gets crowded and crowded and crowded and crowded. Now, the other problem with such a large state is you have stuff like this. There's over 100 million people that live on the Ganges River. That's absurd. There's so many people. The river is so polluted from just random dumping of everything that it's warm whole year round. It's insane. And India, just based on its population alone, has a GDP of $7.3 trillion. That's almost half of the United States' GDP, and the United States has a quarter of the population. The thing that we have to worry about with India is that the population is going to continue to grow. Now, they can't feed their people very successfully, as is right now, but, the fact that they have an aging and old system of roads, they really don't have any kind of traffic lights, you're very likely to die everywhere, it doesn't help. Not to mention their aging railroad. That railroad was built by the British back in the 1800s, so that's over 100 years old and was never meant to carry the amount of people it currently carries right now. And the other thing that divides India is that the language varies from state to state, kingdom to kingdom. It's really bad sometimes, and you might just end up in a random spot and you'd have no clue what the language is. It's going to be really bad for you. If you do go to India, I'm not saying India is a bad place. India is a great place. The people there are very, very friendly, and a lot of people know English. English in India is a great second language opportunity. And what you'll find is that India right now is a developing market. Much like the way China was. China's economic growth has slowed down, and China really hasn't had much regard for its environment. Whereas with India, they care a little bit more about the environment. I think it's mostly a religious thing. But they're very, very nice people. They enjoy their environment. Every person in India is very well educated, actually, despite what people won't tell you. And the medicine, fine. But in parts of India, don't get me wrong. In parts of Mumbai, in parts of Calcutta, in parts of New Delhi, there are very rich people. And India certainly has the potential to come out on top as one of the top producing nations. It already is one of the top 5 in terms of GDP. Only India can control trade in the region, and I foresee India becoming a major economic power player in that region in the years to come, as they develop their industry and as we develop better techniques, as they modernize their rail systems. But for now, India is India, and we love you just the way you are. And always, thanks for watching.